Hello, tech friends, and thank you for tuning into Emerging Technologies in Business, where we take a deep dive into different technologies that are impacting businesses today and in the very near future. I'm your host, Brock Riney, and this podcast is brought to you by Kincannon XR. Let's talk tech. Hello, tech friends. Thank you for joining us for another episode of Emerging Technologies in Business. Today, we're going to do something a little different. On most occasions, we talk with leaders of a particularly new tech that's out or hitting the market. But with technology and the way that we work consistently changing, being a great leader of an organization has changed in some aspects as well. We get a chance to speak with Zach Hughes, the creator of the newsletter Zach on Leadership on LinkedIn, which is for anyone who wants to get better at leadership and develop additional leadership skills. Zach is also the VP of IT for Customer Experience and DevOps at CHS, one of the largest farming co-ops in the country. Zach, thanks for being on the show. How's the day treating you so far, good sir?
Oh, it's great. Thanks for having me. Really glad to be here.
Really appreciate you being on the show. So I just want to launch right into it. I really enjoyed reading through several of the newsletters, and one of them that stuck out to me was a discussion around when and how remote teams should meet again in person. And with the hybrid model becoming more of an expectation for many workers, how do you see leaders are balancing the wants of the end workers to the needs of the business?
It's a great question, and something I've been thinking a lot about. So I would say, I've seen so many different approaches on this topic, and I've been really trying to hone in on what works really well for my teams. Just for context, I lead a number of different tech teams in an enterprise technology function. We're generally based out of the Twin Cities. I got folks all over the country now. But it's we're kind of based out of the Twin Cities historically speaking. So and people moved around a little bit during the last 2 years. So as we've looked at this, so some companies and some teams, even within my own company, have adopted kind of a strict hybrid schedule where it's like you can work, remotely, 3 days a week. You should be, in the office 2 days a week, and it should be, really on these days specifically. I've seen a lot of that, or I've seen, kind of this 100% remote where, teams can be, remote all the time. That's really the two modes I've seen a lot, kind of close to me. And as I've talked to my tech teams that report up to me, a lot of them, really enjoy the flexibility of really full remote work and didn't really necessarily want to be chained to a particular schedule that seemed a little artificial and forced. So we tend to avoid that. So, having these fully remote teams, I found that, then I had kind of almost two different kinds of fully remote teams that never got together and teams that did get together and for certain reasons. And, I found that the teams that found reasons to get together, even if it wasn't on a regular basis, but it was at least periodically, like, once a month or once every 2 months or something like that. They really got a lot out of it. They really enjoyed it. And so I started to talk to these teams to find out what they were doing and how it was working. And there's a lot of variety to it. Like, for instance, some teams would do like the kind of the team building thing, do something fun, get together, have a meal, that kind of thing. And that was really meaningful for folks. Others would do something a little bit more, business focused, such as, strategic planning. They would, potentially have, aspects of their team where they're on a particular schedule or they're trying to plan kind of the next season of work. Other teams really took advantage of like new employee onboarding, which I thought was kind of a creative idea. It's like, we're going to have new people join our team. Let's use that as a reason to get everybody together, meet everybody in person first, kind of create that face-to-face relational bond, and then we all go, to our homes and see each other on screens, having met each other in person. I thought that was one of the best reasons to kind of get together. So those and plus others have been kind of what I've been sharing just around in my newsletter and with my other teams to say, hey, those of you that have really not done anything at all are kind of missing out, and your teams may be kind of having hunger for some of that human interaction. So as leaders, it's up to us to provide something like that.
Yeah, and with the fully remote workers, do you think that there's a lack of knowledge being transferred back and forth, because there is that lack of water cooler talk, with the high rise of everyone working remote. It seems like it could be detrimental in a way, simply because you lose that aspect of collective failure where you learn from each other's mistakes, because remotely we're not really doing that. We're not having that discussion of, hey, what did this last customer did, or what happened in this scenario and how they fixed it, right? Have you noticed that at all as well?
Well, I found that, to give them credit, I found that the teams do collaborate with each other quite well. Just in the day-to-day, they found a way. So it's, through modern collaboration tools, either be synchronous or asynchronous, there's good amount of knowledge sharing going on. No one kind of works on their own in an island. They're constantly kind of working together, to achieve their objectives. So I feel like that is happening, but maybe it's not really happening maybe cross teams as much, right? Or just here's another thing that kind of suffers, would be just networking in general, right? Across, outside of the company and industry, sitting and clicking on a webinar is not the same thing as actually showing up and going to like a user group, or a conference, so people can get a little stale and insular, from that standpoint, I would say. So I've encouraged teams as also to, kind of get out and get in the community as well. So, but there's ways to do it digitally. Like, you and I are talking here. We're, 1,000 miles away from each other approximately. So it can be done. So I just do encourage teams to continue to collaborate and connect with each other.
Absolutely. One of the other things you mentioned in one of the articles was a reference to the 2004 movie Miracle about the 1980 USA hockey team that defeats the Soviet Union. And when you referred to that, you were talking about how leaders can actually go overboard as well. So what are the lessons that you've taken from the legendary head coach of Herb Brooks that you've instilled into your leadership style, and even some lessons that you've been giving out in your newsletters?
That's a great story, and I did take some serious inspiration from that. I know many have. I think one of the things that I saw Herb Brooks do, in that film that really inspired me is kind of his continual seeking of excellence, and this scene where he says he blows the whistle and again. I find myself at times behaving that way with my team. When it comes to, just knowing that you can unlock a higher level of performance. Another thing that Herb Brooks says, I know how hard to push my team. I know how hard to push them. And, I think that's careful. That's critical to be careful with that, right? Because I think we all know that you can overdo it, right? We've all seen bosses or had bosses that just were just cracking the whip, and it was tough. Nothing was ever good enough, and you never really got a sense that you were ever going to measure up, and it's very demoralizing. But if you look at Herb Brooks' approach here, that wasn't the case. He said, I know how hard to push my team. I know they're capable of rising to this next level. So that's how I feel a lot about the folks that have a lot of potential on my team. Is like, what? I know it's in there. I've seen it. Maybe it's not consistent yet, but it's there. And it's my job to unlock it, right. To kind of push you to the point where you're realizing your potential. One of the reasons I'm so passionate about that is because I feel like that's definitely how I've got to be where I'm at today, is people pushed me, right? No one just said, hey, Zach, just keep doing what you're doing when you're doing fine. No, they said, hey, you could do more. I'm going to give you more hard things to do and see, what you're capable of. So I benefit from that. So as a leader, I've got the responsibility to see in others what they maybe can't always see in themselves, and push them to their maximum potential, but no further. Don't want to burn people out. So.
And, when you're talking about getting to that next higher level, in a leadership mentality, how important is it to empower your team in their leadership journey? How you're providing your leadership down to your team, how important is empowering them to their specific journey is what I mean.
Yeah, no, it's a good point. I need to be very open-minded about the path that people take and the path that's kind of right. So as a leader, I am responsible for casting kind of a wider vision, a sense of direction in terms of where we're going. I am also responsible for reinforcing our values. But where I get very, very flexible and need to be very, very flexible is on the how. Is our particular methods, in my case, our technologies that we're using. I spent a good part of my career as a technologist. I could get my hands dirty and do quite a bit with technology. That of course, as time passes, those skills become less and less relevant. Those methods become more and more dated. So if I'm not careful, in my experience, I could be kind of overly prescriptive with my team in terms of setting those expectations. So that's where empowerment really comes in to say, we've set the vision, we've agreed on the vision. We've talked about things like strategy and kind of got guardrails there. We've anchored into the values that are most important to us. But you guys could figure this out. Right. I'm not handing you a fully baked cake and say, here it is. Nope. Yeah, you're involved in the process. You're involved in the problem solving. I want all of the ideas. And for you guys to kind of go forth and help figure this out. If you get stuck, I'm here to help. But ultimately, you're empowered. That's what empowerment means: is you've got some decision-making authority to solve these problems with all of your collective brain power on the team.
And I thought one of the good examples that you had in that article was, hey, there's not a project leader on this project. Do you want to be the project manager? Do you think you can handle it? And giving them the ability to say yes or no, or run from the opportunity, or run straight into it. Because as an employee, just being given the kudos or the ability or even the willingness to think that you're capable of doing that, it's got to be hugely changing to anyone. I just thought that was a great example specifically of empowerment. I think also, though, to flip that around, to go against empowerment, not necessarily against, but maybe the other side of the coin, let's talk a little bit about accountability, because I know that can be tough sometimes, but it's a necessity in literally any type of business. So what type of techniques do you utilize to not only hold your people accountable, but also to ensure that they have self-accountability?
It's a great question. Leaders share the credit, but they take the blame.
Yep. Like the quarterback of business.
Yeah. So it's, accountability is huge. So how do you kind of maintain accountability? It's a good question. Ultimately, I need my leaders to have kind of good command of what's going on. It's while empowering decision makers, that's not an excuse to be kind of uninvolved, right?
Right.
So it's important for leaders to kind of have a good pulse on how's this really going? What's really the story? Are we tracking towards success? What are the roadblocks? And kind of know what the issues are at any given point. So it's really have kind of command of the situational awareness of anything you're kind of responsible for overall. And, in my area, that could be like project delivery, that could be, product health, that could be, system uptime, simple things like that. So, ultimately we're accountable for providing those services. So if things don't go well or there's a problem, that does fall on leadership to say, okay, let's figure it out. I don't necessarily need to swoop down and, start, taking over at that point, but I need to see to it that things are on track and going to be remediated or corrected.
So one last question for you. For me, empathy in leadership is something that's such a easily overlooked trait for a leader. But for myself, at least in my professional career, I've met very, very, very few great leaders who also weren't very empathetic. So why does empathy go so hand in hand with great leadership in your thought process?
Yeah, it's really good. I think it's let me just kind of put it a couple of different contexts. There's empathy for your team members, and there's empathy for like your customers. And they might look a little bit different, but it's kind of the same muscle. But let me give you a couple examples there. So, for your team members, folks that are reporting to you, they're all human beings. They all have lives. They all have, stresses, things going on, whether it be, family issues, health issues, political turmoil. I mean, there's things that affect people's lives. And, it's important to kind of deal with people, as human beings, give them kind of space to kind of process whatever's going on in their life, and help them through it to a degree. I mean, helping them through it doesn't necessarily mean, I'm going to help solve your personal problems, but I'll give you space to kind of deal with that. I'll give you some flexibility to kind of deal with that, and I'm going to care for you authentically as a person, because I care about you. We don't know each other, deeply personally, but we have enough familiarity that we know each other. We know, whether you got a family, you got kids or not, just various aspects of people's personal situations is something that I encourage every leader to have a good familiarity with, because when stuff happens, this stuff becomes quite important, and you got to care for folks. So I would say it's just simply kind of caring for people. It goes a long way. In terms of just that overall rapport and relationship. Now on the other side, like, empathy in terms like with customers or with the business partners, kind of up and out, empathy work goes a long way too. I would say, being in a corporate IT department, we have a certain point of view on things, right? And your customers have a complete opposite point of view on things in terms of expectations and of your performance and what you should be doing or not doing and things of that sort. So, it's this whole kind of walk a mile in another's shoes sort of approach on things to say, okay, I'm going to stop. I'm going to listen. I'm going to hear you out. I'm going to see what you need. And, if you are, say, trying to develop better products and solutions, how are you going to do that if you don't really understand, your customer in terms of what they need, right, what they care about? We're just guessing otherwise. So, I highly encourage, kind of that, kind of building that empathy and relationship with our customers, of our products, our business partners that use the services that we work hard on, to understand how what it means to them. If this thing goes down, what happens? If they have a much better sense of the competitive marketplace. They have a much better sense of what this means to their downstream customers. So it all starts with kind of empathy, understanding what that is, and making that a priority. It just makes us better, it makes us stronger, certainly makes us more competitive. So
definitely seems like it's empathy is almost the why, whether it be the why for the employee, the why for the customer, and just understanding that gives you a better understanding of the customer, better understanding of the employee and where they're coming from and what they're dealing with. Zach, I mean, great talking with you today. I really do appreciate you being on the show and sharing some of your insights about leadership. Can you tell us where our audience could go to find out more about your leadership newsletter and your podcast as well?
Yeah, absolutely. So the best place I'd say is LinkedIn. If you're in business and technology, you should definitely be on LinkedIn, and that's the best place to find me. Just type Zach Hughes into the search box and you're going to find me. I also have a website. It's called ZachOnLeadership.com. You type that in, you'll find links to all of my articles and my podcast there. Certainly you can search for Zach on Leadership in any place where you get podcasts, and you will find my show listed there.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. So that's going to wrap it up for today's episode, everyone. Thanks again, of course, to you, Zach, for being here with us. If you like this content, give this episode a like, leave a comment about the next topic that you'd like to see us discuss on future episodes, and of course, subscribe to our channel. I want to thank Kincannon XR for sponsoring this podcast. You can find them at Kincannon XR on all social media, and you can follow our podcast on social media as well at ETIB Podcast. I've been your host, Brock Riney. Have a great day, and we'll talk some more emerging tech next time. See you guys later.